This review video is going to be covering comparing and ordering integers, fractions, and decimals. So we'll go through and say which one's greater than which. We will order these least to greatest. We will also talk about graphing the number and its opposite on a number line. So let's go ahead and get started. Our first question is going to be about integers. So here we're going to be writing a positive or negative integer that represents the situation. So the key here is going to be finding that keyword that tells us if the integer is going to be positive or negative. And then we're already given the that number, so that part will already be given to us. So our first question says the price of a stock increases $2. So that increases tells us it's going to be a positive number. So here we would write 2, or we can write a positive integer with that positive sign, positive 2. Either one is fine. You do not need both, but either one is acceptable. And our second question says you descend 15 feet. And here we talked about ascending and descending. Descend means to go down, so this is going to be a negative. And our integer here is 15, so our answer should be negative 15. And with negative integers, that is the only way we're able to write those. So that's writing positive or negative integers that represent a situation. So we find that keyword that tells us if it's positive or negative, and then use the number that's within our situation. Our next question on integers is graphing the integer and its opposite. So the key here is we're given an integer, like for our first example, 8, and we need to graph that and its opposite, which here is negative 8, on a number line. Now when we create our number line, we have to make sure that we go by a number that is consistent. So here, I'm actually just going to go by 2's. So 2, 4, 6, and 8. And I do the same thing on the other side, except it's going to be our negative numbers. And because this number 8 and negative 8 are both labeled on our number line, we just have to plot that point. Make sure you actually plot your point on the number line. And we are done with that one. Our second question is a negative 3. So the opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. So again, we're going to create our number line. I'm going to go by 1's here since my integers are pretty small. And I'm going to plot my number on the number line. Now, if I went by 2's, let's say, I had 2 and 4, negative 2 and negative 4. Because these two numbers don't exist on our number line, I would actually plot where they should be, so 3 lies between 2 and 4, and label it above. So if you create a number line that your integer isn't labeled, you need to make sure that you label your point above. Our next section is comparing and ordering integers. So we're going to start with writing some number sentences, and we're going to be using the less than or greater than sign. So here we have negative 5 and 0. If we think about numbers on a number line, 0 is larger than negative 5, so we would have negative 5 is less than 0. Our second one is comparing two negatives. So we have to remember that with negative numbers, the number that is closer to 0 is going to be the larger one. So negative 7 is actually larger than negative 9, which seems kind of opposite of what we would think with positive numbers. So negative 7 is closer to 0 on the number line, so it's larger. Again, we have two negative numbers, negative 12 and negative 8. So again, I'm looking for the number that is closer to 0 on the number line. Here it's negative 8. So negative 12 is actually less than negative 8. Here we're going to order the integers from least to greatest. So you're going to be given a list of positive and negative numbers. The best thing to do when you're ordering these is to kind of cross them out as you go. So I identify my negative numbers first, and I decide which one is the smallest. So the one that's farthest from 0, and that's going to be negative 5, followed by negative 2, negative 1, and then we're left with 0 and 3, so we have 0 and 3. And that's our numbers least to greatest. Let's go ahead and try another one. Negative 6, 5, 3, negative 8, and negative 7. Again, I'm going to look at my negative numbers first, decide which one's the smallest. Here is negative 8, followed by negative 7 and negative 6. Then we have two positive numbers, and those are easier to order least to greatest. So we have 3 then 5. And we've got that one done as well. So that's integers overall. Now we're going to move into fractions and decimals. So we're going to start off with graphing that number and its opposite. So again, this is very similar to when we graphed our integers and their opposite, except here we're dealing with fractions and decimals. But when we create our number line, we have to make sure that we use numbers that we're going by consistently when we're labeling our number line. So here I have 3/5, and the opposite of 3/5 is negative 3/5. So I'm going to create my number line, and to make it easy, since we have fifths here, I'm going to go by 1/5. So 1/5, 2/5, and 3/5. Again, you don't always have to go by the exact same thing. We can kind of change this up. People could decide to go by maybe ones. It would just be a little bit less exact, which is okay as long as we label our points. So here 3/5 exists on our number line, so I'm going to plot that, and negative 3/5 does as well, and that's our number line there. Let's go ahead and try another one, negative 1.4. With this one, I'm actually going to make a number line that these numbers are not labeled. So negative 1.4 and 1.4. I'm just going to go by, let's just go by 1/2. So I'll do 0.5, 1, 1.5, and 2, and then go backwards the same way, except they're negatives. Into -2. And then what I have to do here is I'm going to plot my positive 1.4, which is almost 1.5, but not exactly. So I'm going to write 1.4 above there. Oops, back to that. And then I want to plot my negative 1.4. Again, it's almost to negative 1.5, but not quite. And I label negative 1.4. Just make sure if your number is not labeled on the number line that you have, you actually label the point that you're plotting above it. Okay? So our next ones, we're going to be comparing. So we're going to be writing another math statement, so basically filling in with less than or greater than. We have negative 3 and 28/100 and negative 3 and 72/100. So with these decimals, there's a few ways we can think about it. One is always the number that's farther away from 0 on a number line is the smaller. With decimals here, since we have 2, I would think about this like money and like owing somebody money. So negative $3.28 versus negative $3.72. So with that, thinking money-wise, I would rather owe somebody less money. So that negative 3 and 28/100 is larger than negative 3 and 72/100. So we're going to fill that word sentence in with a greater than sign. Our next problem is fractions, and these can cause a little bit of an issue. So when we're dealing with fractions, my first instinct is always to get a common denominator. So I have 5 and 4 here. I'm going to go ahead and make those denominators 20, just to make it easy. So to get 5 to 20, I multiply by 4, so I do the same thing to my numerator, and I have negative 2 and 8/20. And on the right here, I have negative 2, and I'm going to multiply by 5, and 5/20. So once we have those with a common denominator, then I can picture which one would be farther away from 0. So again, the one that's farther away from 0 when they are both negative is the one that has a smaller value. So negative 2 and 8/20 is a little bit farther away than negative 2 and 5/20. So negative 2 and 2/5 is actually smaller than negative 2 and 1/4. And this actually concludes our review video. So make sure you look over your notes, rewatch any explanations that you feel you need more practice on, and good luck studying.